Welcome to the Future of Tourism podcast. I'm David Peacock.
Stop owning your own content.
Young leaders are stepping up.
Bring everyone to the table
and imagine their world anew.
We're barely 2 years into sustainability as a mainstream discussion, and already it's not enough. There's a general consensus that destination organizations must focus on regenerative tourism that actually leaves a place better than the traveler or visitor found it. There have only been a few successful regenerative tourism initiatives around the world, but one stands out for me, and it's the Bay of Plenty in New Zealand. As CEO of tourism for the Bay of Plenty, Kristin Dunne has the lived experience of working closely with her community to build a regenerative strategy and implementation for the better part of half a decade. Good morning, Kristin. How are you? Where are you? What's it like?
Morena, David. I'm in the beautiful Bay of Plenty, which is on the northeast coast of the New Zealand's North Island. And it's a beautiful sunny day here today. But boy, it's been a mixed bag with the weather. And I think that's making climate change feel very real this year.
Yeah, well, as we roll into fall, which I guess is your spring, we're seeing, some great weather as well, but some highly, highly variable and dangerous weather. So if anybody needs a reminder, there it is.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got an unseasonable snow at the moment, and then they're forecasting incredible heat for the summer. So definitely a mixed bag.
Well, and if you follow the almanac and the Canadian Science Table, they're predicting a quote odd winter here. Yeah, how about that? So listen, you've been gone for a few months. We haven't talked. What have you been doing?
Well, we've had a baby, so a beautiful baby girl, Maeve, who's now 8 months old. And it's just been a real pleasure to spend time with her and my other son, Kaylin, who's 9, and be a full-time mum for a while. But back at work now, and lovely to be back speaking with you.
Well, totally glad to have you back. So much has happened in I guess 24 to 28 months. I mean, you really you left sort of partway into this. The world has substantially changed. I'm so happy to see that in essence, COVID actually moved the sustainability question forward, put it front and center. But in the middle of all that, it became apparent from all the work and research going on, that's not enough. It's about regenerative tourism, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's wonderful to see the conversation happening so profoundly and so openly globally. And I think the worldview, the mind shift that needed to happened so much faster because of COVID. And so there's a massive opportunity there. But I agree, regenerative adds those layers to sustainability that are really important to the community as well as to visitors.
Well, and that's where you and I first met, is on the community piece. You were working with, I think, Frank Kuipers, and really admire this. I think well ahead of the curve. You were saying, and Frank was saying, was championing this idea. Lots of people were talking about, but championing the idea that tourism serves residents first, or else it shouldn't be. I mean, if it doesn't enrich the lives of citizens, you have to look long and hard at why. And the only way you can enrich their lives is if there's legacy value, and that really means regeneration, doesn't it?
Yeah, 100%. Totally converted to that thinking, and I've seen it in action now. So it's really wonderful to see that it does actually work, and community can be part of tourism, and also tourism can be a force for good. So yeah, it's really exciting to know that, to deeply know that, and to be able to now apply that thinking to other places.
Well, it's interesting too, because when Bay of Plenty gravitated towards regenerative tourism plan, isn't it interesting? That was the front and center focus. I call it the shiny thing, the bauble, the thing that gets people really excited and in a room. Now we're seeing a lot of other destinations embracing it. It's going to be part of other and different implementations. How you get to regeneration, how you build the networks and the partnerships. It's not always going to be based on a regenerative master plan. It looks like it's going to be layered in with other plans, which makes a lot of sense given the structure of this industry. But I want to come back though, and I really want to talk to you about the lived experience, because regenerative tourism, sustainable tourism, it sounds like a truism, but it's not to be taken lightly. And it's a lot of work, a lot of highs and a lot of lows. Can you give us a précis of Bay of Plenty from the time you're standing on the horizon thinking, what do we do next? And keep it fun and fast, but tell us what it was like.
I had no idea what I was getting myself into. um, I had a deep knowing that this was where we needed to go. And it felt right. It was right for our Indigenous people, which is obviously incredibly important. It was right for our community. It was right for our visitors. And it was right for us as an organisation to switch up our value and purpose. So there was this great synthesis that was just like tick, 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 tick. This is absolutely.
What year was that?
2018.
2018. You've been the CEO at that point for how long?
2 years.
2 years. Okay. And and you were brought in under a mandate of what would the change be and how would you manage it? I take it.
I was already within the organisation as the head of marketing.
Got it.
So I applied for and was successful to get the chief executive role. And yes, we had a lot of work to do because we were irrelevant, basically. And we had no strategy, we had no story, and we just weren't, frankly, very successful.
But at the same time, the place around you was remarkable and marvelous, wasn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, and much loved by New Zealanders and by the community, the residents.
So what you do next sounds so sensible to me. You harness that love and attention and commitment, but reducing it to a sentence doesn't even begin to explain what happens really and how hard it is to literally from the beginning beat the street to build a new network who cares about something new, right?
Right, and it is absolutely beating the street. Every community group that you can get to go in front of, it took well over 12 months to go out there and just tell a different story and to have the community go, actually, that's important to me. Your organisation would have purpose for me, and I would be happy to fund it through my rates if that was what you were helping to do, which is to love the place, protect it for now and for future generations, and make sure that it's protected and not destroyed into the future. So that became valuable.
Was that literally the core of your narrative that you hit the street with?
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. Did some people look at you like you were a hippie?
Yeah, well, because sustainability at that time just meant green environmental stuff, and of course
Sure.
we've come to appreciate it's much more about social and cultural and environmental as well as economic. So yes, a lot of people looked at me like I was crazy and possibly still do, and I think that's one of my key lessons is that when your own mind shifts, you kind of think other people's have shifted as well.
Right.
And they might be nodding and agreeing with you, but they haven't actually gone through that fundamental shift yet. So I think the mind shift is one thing, but I totally underestimated all the other shifts that we needed to make as an organization, and also how to keep growing that coalition of support and help those mind shifts happen in those people too. And that was really a continuous dialogue.
So let me ask you this. I got to take a sidebar on this one because it's so important and it's been a lived experience for so many people I know recently, myself included. The shift you talk about, that shift when you understand that the single greatest cause we have is regeneration and sustainability, and that actually anything we do fits into it. So it doesn't matter, where you work or what you do, there's things we can do. Had you had that personal shift before you started developing the program?
Do you know what? I had it on the very last night of our plan that we had written together with Destination Think at the time. I had it that very night. And
No way.
the plan that we had written was very based in sustainability. And I was reflecting back on all the community conversations that we'd had. And as you said, it just wasn't enough. The love of our place was too great. The wisdom of our Indigenous leaders was too rich to just leave it at that. So I went back to the team and I said, no, we need to push this harder. And it did
Wow.
really feel like it was just something that got me that night. And then I couldn't change it from there.
Okay, so that moment, then you have the moment when you sort of jump in the deep end, as I call it. I've sort of had that same feeling in the last 12 months, to say the least. It's immediately followed by, in my opinion, 3 months of darkness when you accepted that this is the most important thing you must do, but you looking at it going, oh, come on, my intelligence still tells me it's impossible. And you get really dark. And then somehow you pop out the far side. Did that happen to you?
I didn't have the darkness bit up front because I was just so optimistic. And again, it just seemed so logical and right to me that how could anyone disagree with it? Like, of course. But I underestimated many things. And the first one was really taking our team on that same journey and having them have the confidence to back this thing, because we were really zagging away from the way every other RTO in the country was doing
You
things.
were so far from mainstream. It's totally appropriate that you were dropped in a little island in the South Seas. You were very far from the mainstream.
Very far. And so our whole team needed to get on board with that. And that took some time for them to have that confidence and then to be really like, yeah, this is where we need to go.
That must be remarkable today in the sense that, at the time it was a complete flyer. I mean, you're one of the first, I liken it to the all clarity of Copenhagen saying the end of tourism as we know it, like, boom, what's going on? That team today must look back and realize as everybody moves towards that mainstream, wow, they were almost 5 years ahead of that curve.
Yeah, and Copenhagen were a wonderful inspiration to us actually, and Flanders, and others who were in that sort of real first mover space. Yeah, and I think it's just one of the many shifts we had to make. So there was the mind shift, and
Mm-hmm.
then there was the culture shift within our organization. There was a shift in purpose. Who were we? What did we do now? What didn't we do now? And there were a lot of conversations, picking things up and going, ooh, do we still do this? I don't know. And
Come on. Name names. What kind of things did you stop doing?
we questioned everything. I think how we approached everything changed.
Well, here's my first observation. Looking at what you accomplished, a sizable portion of your budget went to something other than buying media.
Oh, 100%. And our whole media strategy changed, and I can talk about that too. But so we had to get additional funding, and I think that's an important point. If you're trying to do this with an existing budget, it's very difficult. So we worked so hard to get additional funding, and that enabled us to have conversations. So we didn't
Mm-hmm.
stop doing the things that people expected us to be doing. We might have done them differently, but we had this extra layer of stuff that we started to do, which was in this future regenerative space. It
Okay,
enabled us to hire.
that's really important to this situation right now, where most DMOs find themselves is they can't simply abandon what they've been doing, but they need to take this on. So I think there's really some good wisdom in here. I'll let you keep going, but I just want to underline that. Go on.
Yeah, so it's an and, not a or conversation. And you have to be very bifocal or maybe trifocal, so keep your eye on today and what's needed by the industry. And, especially at the moment, post-COVID, the industry's so struggling, and it's very difficult to have conversations with them about the future when they're just trying to keep the lights on and keep going. So they need the support of the DMO to ensure sustainable growth again. Economic
Mm-hmm.
growth is an important part of
Mm-hmm.
this. But then you need to be also looking out much further. So
So,
into this, the extra layers of destination management, and
mm-hmm.
also especially if you're going to have a regenerative lens on it. And it's wonderful when you're thinking about a place and protecting it for future generations. That gives you such a bigger time span to be thinking of. So I think one of the challenges for a team who's going through this change process is to be thinking here and now, next 12 months, and then much further out.
Okay, how much is much further? Say it.
Oh gosh. If you, our Maori elders would tell us 500 years.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, and our indigenous peers here in Canada tell us 7 generations front and back for sure, to the very least. Interesting how mystical and ethereal that seemed 4 years ago, and how incredibly intelligent and thoughtful it seems today.
Right. And I really give all credit to our Maori people who I was able to listen to, because they explained to me what protection of place and people was long before I found the term regeneration.
Wow.
So I found regeneration almost as a Western explanation for
Mm-hmm.
this very wise, um, innate wisdom that I think all Indigenous people have. So if you can go to source within your country and you can go and talk to your First People, then that you will understand regeneration better than anything you'll ever read.
Can I ask you this? That initial movement towards First People and tourism, it's very awkward here in Canada right now. We're in the middle of the throes of a reconciliation that is in name only at this point. And I don't mean to cast aspersions on anybody's effort, but that's the truth. Was that immediately receptive? Was it hard to make, that connection to begin with? How does that work?
Yeah, so I was at a conference and one of the politicians actually said that cultural tourism in New Zealand should not be a value added thing. It shouldn't be something that's done on the side. It is our tourism proposition. And I thought, well, it was a light bulb moment. I was like, yeah, that is
Oh,
so true. Why is it on the side in my place? In my place, why is it on the side? Why do we not see these cultural experiences? And so we hired a wonderful, wonderful person, Simon Phillips, and he came and he helped build those relationships. He opened the doors for us and he built the relationships and he built trust. And it took time. It took time for us to become a trusted,
hmm.
um, I guess, organization, and then, hopefully eventually a partner. And we got to share what value could tourism add to our iwi, to our hapu in the Bay of Plenty. How could we
Can you
work
can
together to
can
build
you
that
tell
value?
us can you tell us what iwi and hapu is, please?
Oh, yeah, sure. So basically, tribe and family whānau. So, um, iwi is made up of many hapu,
Yeah.
many family groupings, and then hapu is the smaller kind of, I guess, part of that.
All
All
right.
equally
So
important.
all equally important. Yes. If the pebbles go away, the foundation crumbles. Right. There it is. Okay. So in there, knowing that we're in the midst of a very rapid adoption of sustainability as a imperative, all sorts of activity going on, lots of great people out there doing great work, lots of other work that's not as great in greenwashing, but knowing now that it's, there will be places that take regeneration as their core theme of their destination master plan. Then there'll be other places that are far more practical and work it in. What do you want to share with people? And let's put your hat on. You've been an international tourism destination development consultant in under a number of auspices, including Miles. What would you share with destination organizations right now as they make that transition everywhere in the world, from urban and central places like Australian and American big cities, right through to some of the more pristine and preservable or unpreservable, who knows, destinations? What would you share?
So probably three key things. One is it has to be authentic and genuine. Don't do this to be competitive.
Mhm.
And competitiveness in tourism is really a nonsense. We should be open source. Each place has a value and a benefit and a set of values and a community that is rich and differentiated from each other. So we really don't need to compete if we understand who we are as a place and who our people are, and we're genuinely projecting that into the world. So that's the first thing. Have to have really genuine intent and love for your place and the community and wanting to see that protected for future generations. And then the other two things that I think are quite powerful is the type of leader that you need to be. And there's sort of a set of values, I guess, around that, and the leadership that you need to create within your place and following the same themes. And then all these shifts that you need to make once your mind has shifted. There's a lot of others.
So,
So I think I can define those, but I think going into it, it's really important for governors, boards, councils, the leadership team to understand this is not a shift in name only. This is not just something you can write on a page. You have to be prepared to fundamentally shift everything about your organization and what you do.
when you looked at organization pre-plan and post-plan, just articulate. I mean, you've already talked about it. It's a mind shift, but what is the mind shift?
I think that's the shift of going, hang on, stop. Everything we're doing here needs to be different. What that difference looks like is hard to predict. But now when I kind of look back, long cast back, I saw that we shifted everything. So we shifted our role and purpose as an organization. We shifted our organizational culture. We shifted our power. It wasn't about us as a DMO. Like we had this conversation.
Perfect.
The world is turning, like we're not making it turn. So shift of power from us as an organization into the community and into the industry. And then I guess it's a shift in organizational structure.
Mhm.
We put resources into different places. We had different roles. We hired new roles, destination developers, researchers. We hired partnership manager. We just had an
Did
importance on a whole different range of skill sets, as
and
well as what we did before.
I imagine and as well as what you did before, which was great content, but I mean, imagine your role as a curator versus a progenitor of content became really important, right?
100%. And we talked in the last podcast about the passion groups that we started within the community and the industry. And all power to them. They've just done incredible work, and they've become this self-fulfilling, self-energizing group of people who have a real passion for that area of our DNA, and they're regenerating it for the future. And it's a wonderful thing to see in action.
Well, and I'm loving the development of models. We talk about the Bay of Plenty all the time, but we also talk about lots of other examples around the world that are happening in pockets of great stuff. And on that front, I'm going to say to you, you've been able to scan for a number of years. What else do you see going on that you're really enamored with that you can point other people to? Say, hey, if you want to read about some great stuff, or if you want to think about people who are doing great work, what would come to mind?
Yeah, it's a good question. I'm loving Slovenia, Flanders, Vancouver Island, and the whole social enterprise piece. I'm
Nice.
wanting to get there. I think the Netherlands is doing great work. Scotland is doing great work. Glasgow within that, Travel Oregon, and others in that space. There's a really interesting project in Tasmania called Flinders
Hmm.
Island, and they've been doing some very deep regenerative work there. So there's pockets of awesome
What's
going on, and I
interesting
think
about Tasmania? Tell me a little more.
it's an island off
Oh,
Tasmania.
I know what it is. No, what's interesting about the project?
Oh yeah, so this is an island off Tasmania, so it's an island off an island,
No
and
way.
very, very traditional, authentic community. And to be able to have a conversation there about what tourism looks like has had the people running that project have literally moved onto the island, and
Really?
they've had to become accepted not just as a consultant but as a local, so that they
Wow.
can say that they truly understand what it is to live there and to protect it.
Wow.
Yeah, very
Wow.
deep conversations before they're able to get into action. And I think that's the thing. And I know that my good friend Anna Pollock struggles with this sometimes. As an industry, we try and make a plan. We try and put it in boxes, and we try and put targets against it. And regenerative is so much more self-organizing than that. And the role of the DMO is to spark the thinking, and to be the catalyst, to bring people together, and to be the catalyst for things, not to be the controller of it. And I
Yes.
think that's
Yes.
a really important point.
Well, and then back to the context of practicality. You're an early adopter in this field and working in the same edge of that quilt, so to speak, for a number of years as well. As we move from the mainstream into regeneration and sustainability as a first step, even. Yeah, I think you pointed out very well at the beginning of this. You didn't, as much as you changed everything in 5 years at BOP, at first you also preserved a bunch of infrastructure you had because there were expectations. That's the kind of rollout we're going to see in most destinations. They have intact structures and partners, and they're going to shift and they're going to turn. Some of them are going to have the luxury of a place that says no, we want net new. And I'm getting to work with a couple of those in Canada right now who are out of the pandemic into new ownership models and starting to talk about net new. That's really fun. But the practical approach works. My underlining point would be you can't build a network of stakeholders fast enough. to help you. The one thing we don't have as destination organizations, as much as we like to pretend we've got great stakeholders, it's a really, really shallow kind of engagement for the most part, considering what we're talking about here today, isn't it?
Yeah, it's just so concerning, isn't it? Because tourism is so valuable to a place and its people, and it can be so much more. And we just don't invest in it appropriately. And then the governance of it, as you say, generally changes every 3 years. So you've got to have these conversations, and you have them over and over and over again. And some people are going to get it and some people aren't. But without that, as you say, that coalition, it's very difficult to move forward. And really, towards the end of my time at the Bay of Plenty, that's what I realized is the Bay of Plenty was never going to be successful unless this shift happened much more broadly. We had to become a small fish in a much bigger pond, and not be out there kind of flip-flopping along on our own almost. And so I've been really pleased that I've been able to work with Regional Tourism New Zealand on a professional development program, and that was all
Excellent.
about trying to lift the tide of our awesome marketers and managers who work within tourism to have the same mind shift
Mm-hmm.
that
Mm-hmm.
that we had, and therefore we start to see leadership in action rather than just sort of thought leadership.
Well, and I'm encouraged and excited that you take that thinking on the road, because, as I said, the Bay of Plenty has sparked a lot of conversations around the world, many, many more than you'll ever know. You're like a baseball trading card. You don't know anybody who's looking at you at a given point in time, and that's a great thing. And I'm really encouraged to see all of this starting to move towards programs and systems, because frankly, we need that. We need that in order for adoption quickly, and not just because we want to be successful as DMOs, but back to the sustainability question. The other sad reality is tick, 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 tick. We don't have forever to do this.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yes, and that is my current kind of thing too, is that the urgency isn't there. And so I think we have a way of taking regenerative tourism and making it implementable
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
within a DMO or an RTO, and it hopefully protects the great wisdom that regenerative tourism has come from, and the I guess the people who have really truly deeply understood it as a concept, but also moves into this practical sense of how do I actually implement this? What does this look like in practical terms? And I think for me, it's about placemaking, place sharing, place keeping are all really important aspects of it, and having a regenerative lens across those things. But then a lot of it's about leadership and the type of
Mm-hmm.
leader that you need to be, but also you need around you. And then understanding up front all the shifts your organization is going to need to go through, because it fundamentally changed our marketing as well. It changed how we put ourselves out in the world to be much more authentic. We were telling much more authentic stories. The DMO got out of the way actually, and we just let the passion of the resident talk to the passion of the visitor, and where that passion meets, that's where the transformation happens. Um, it changed how we marketed. So we were trying to find like passions to match
Mm-hmm.
the passion of our community to the passion of our visitor. And so the channels that we used were entirely different. Um, so yeah, I couldn't underestimate just how valuable it would have been to me if I'd understood all those shifts up front. Like, hey guys, we've got this idea and it's going to mean we're going to do all of these things. It would have freaked everybody out, but we did it sort of by osmosis and learning, and it would have been helpful to know just how, as you said, just how extremely difficult that was.
Well, I don't think you'd ever be able to figure out it takes you here, but I will say this: talking to you now that you're back, and congrats on the new family member and everything. It has informed who you are, though. I think you said it clearly to me the other day. This is what you do for the rest of your life. You're not. It's not. Hey, am I going to do this for a while? You are. This is the most important thing to you. Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't profess to be an expert in this, and I always defer as I said, to my Indigenous elders, and also to the pioneers of this work, the Bill Reeds and the Anna Pollocks and the Michelle Hollidays, and the wonderful, wonderful thought leadership that they give, and I have had the opportunity to learn from. So I'm just, a lady from the Bay of Plenty in New Zealand who one day thought, we need to do better by our place and its people, and I can't be part of something that might destroy this place. And the community aren't going to come with us on tourism growth if they feel like it's going to be not managed well and it's going to ultimately cause harm. So it just made so much logical sense. But now it's something I can't unsee, that
Right.
tourism can be such an amazing force for good and can do incredible things. So I just want to be part of that. And if what I've kind of learned along the way helps, then awesome.
Well, and I join you right there, and I would underline the second part of that and say tourism has such a capacity to do good that it cannot be allowed not to do it in the crisis of regeneration, because tourism, like manufacturing, like education, like intelligence, like technology, like spirituality, like anything, it's all going to come to bear on this.
Yeah, and tourism operates on the very thing that we're needing to protect.
Yeah, indeed.
And
It's great. It's so great to have you here.
I always love our conversations, David, and it inspires me to keep going. And even though people might look at you like you're a bit strange, or they're like, what? It always inspires me.
I don't know anybody looking at you like you're strange. I honestly don't. I think you've inspired a lot of people. Closing thoughts as you round it out, from morning in New Zealand to night in Toronto. Just anything you want to share before we go.
I think the other piece that I haven't touched on is and we talked about this a little earlier, the number and the type of stakeholders you need in your army as you try and move forward is completely different. So you need many, many more people and many more types of people. So building that coalition is just constant. And I know from the team at the Bay of Plenty that the amount of time that they're spending on stakeholder engagement is, quadrupled. We've gone beyond having just sort of me and a partnerships manager trying to do that to it really being a huge part of everyone's roles. And that's where you become really, excuse me, relevant. And you can you're joining the agendas of other important groups within the system. And so I would just say that is a job that's never done. And as we talked about, because politicians tend to change every few years, other governors change every few years, you've got to be constantly trying to make sure that you are connected on this conversation, and that people are willing to step in and to do this thing. And I think that's probably been my biggest lesson, as I thought we had more of a coalition than we did at the governance level. But also we had a very strong community-based initiatives. And so I'm hoping that there's enough life in those that will continue to drive the direction forward. Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense. Going through a version of that in a different destination we're working with, which we summed it up last week, is okay. We always nurture the network. This network was nurtured too much in the people, not the positions, or in the positions and not the people. So yeah, I think the hardest challenge we have, I totally concur with you on this one, is we must build those networks, but then we got to constantly nurture them. These are not perpetual motion things. They need a little bit of assistance to maintain to overcome friction, as the saying goes.
Yeah, definitely agree.
Totally agree with you. Thanks for that. All right. It's great to see you. Hopefully we'll see you in person. I don't think that'll be till the spring, if I've crossed my fingers and hope to fly. Would like to go mountain biking in New Zealand, but we'll see.
Oh, please. Yeah, no, definitely do that. And make sure you come and have dinner with the family when you do. We're very close to one of the best mountain biking areas in New Zealand, Rotorua. So
I know of it well, yes. And all the great riders who came out of there.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, listen, it's been great. Thanks. We'll touch base again. And we'll see you hopefully on dry land.
Okay. Thanks, David. Have a great day.